All right, so as you can see, I got the front of the motor taken apart, and for those of you who have been following along, been having a ton of different or having different fuel problems, and I tried a ton of different things, and nothing up to this point has worked. So my next guess was that maybe something had happened with the eccentric, fuel pump eccentric. So I'll get into how that works on this car, on this engine, Ford 429, and then kind of just give a little bit of an update. But this is probably going to be a pretty a short video. So basically just an update for those who watch my videos and want to find out what's going on with the car. And then also twofold with that is just kind of show how the fuel pump eccentric works. So I'm not an expert on this, but this is just what I've gathered from reading different material, reading a engine rebuild book for this engine, talking to a friend of mine who is an older gentleman who's very experienced with these motors, just kind of taking, drawing bits and pieces from different sources and just kind of coming up with my own opinion. Or not so much opinion, but just kind of my understanding of how this stuff works. So where's a good place to start, I guess? So just real quickly, it feels like this is deja vu because I've made the same video like so many times thinking that it was, something, and it turned out not to be. But just in a quick nutshell, I have literally reworked the entire fuel system, replaced the fuel tank, replaced all the lines, everything. Last fall, I rebuilt the carburetor, got it, did so many different things, and it seemed like it worked for a while, and then it stopped working, and I was at a complete loss. I was like, I don't even know where to start. Like, I'm on my third mechanical fuel pump. The chances of all three pumps being faulty and quitting so soon is definitely possible, but it's the chances are slim. So my next guess, and what brings us to this video here, is the fuel pump eccentric. So I have the whole front of the motor taken apart. I might put together, I did film some of it, so I might put that together. But once I took it apart, found out that that wasn't the problem. It kind of derailed the whole point of making a video about it, aside from just showing how to take stuff apart. But if anybody's watching this and is curious about taking apart, I'll just give a real quick rundown. Basically, you're going to have to pull your radiator, so that involves draining your fluid, draining your radiator, disconnecting your hoses, partially removing your alternator, taking off the alternator bracket, whatever's connected in order to get your water pump out. Keep in mind, once you do all this, it's probably the wisest idea to change your oil afterwards, because you're going to probably get some coolant and other stuff that'll fall down into your oil pan. So it's probably the wisest to do an oil change after this procedure. This is a fairly new rebuilt engine. Anyway, so water pump comes off, and I'll just show you here. One quick tip for all the water pump bolts, they're different lengths. So if you draw yourself a little diagram, that'll help you understand where each one came out. Same with the timing cover. And here's the water pump here. But anyways, pay close attention to which bolts go in where, which ones go through the water jacket, etc. I'm sure there's other stuff on there. And those rules apply to so many different engines. It's not super specific, so I won't go into a great amount of detail because that's not really what this video is about. And then once you get that, take your timing cover off. But one of the things that might be easy to forget about is before you take the timing cover off, you're going to need to take off 2 of your oil pan bolts here and 1 here in order to get the timing cover off. And depending on your situation, if you had older cork gaskets, this can turn into actually quite a procedure, and might involve, in my case, even with a rubber gasket, it's still Torr. So it's going to involve some additional RTV in a few spots to mend the broken spots. Anyways, so got that all off, and my thought as far as, this being the next thing I was going to check out. The reason for that is because the fuel pump eccentric, in doing some research, it sounds like maybe the later 460s, the 460 version of this engine would occasionally have a eccentric that would spin, or the bolt would loosen off or something, or maybe it wasn't installed correctly, or a myriad of different reasons. So I was thinking, okay, maybe that's what happened to my engine. And the only way I could tell that, I didn't ask the fellow who helped me build my engine, because I just wanted to I needed to prove it to myself to find out what really was going on, because I've tried everything. And, he was like, well, I could tell last time when we looked through the opening for the fuel pump, that it wasn't, that it was on there, it was in good shape and stuff like that. But in my mind, there was no way by doing that. It's impossible to tell if this, if it had spun or not. And I don't care who tells me otherwise. It would be impossible to, because you cannot physically see the front of this. You can see if it's still on there, but you can't tell if maybe this pin for some weird reason worked its way loose and then allowed the eccentric to turn. Kind of the thought in my mind, because sometimes it seemed like the pump would work better than others, especially it seemed to work a little better when the engine was just started. The thought was maybe that when it was cold, it was somehow the metal, was shrunk and it was catching, and then when it got hot, it loosened and allowed it to spin. Anything can happen, really. But anyways, to cut to the chase, that's not the case. Everything looks fine. So I'm going to pop that back on, and reassemble the front of the motor. So yeah, just keep an eye on, if you're going to do this job, the chances of you popping off a timing cover, and not really knowing what you're doing, or not having a specific reason, I guess, is probably not very likely. So, if you're doing a cam replacement or something, you'd probably already be doing this. So obviously you need to do new gaskets and stuff, but keep in mind, this guy here goes right into the water jacket. But as you're pulling it out, you'll probably be able to tell. For instance, if some of the bolts will probably be quite rusty, and hopefully you can get them out to begin with. But that's a sure sign that it went into the water jacket. Some of them go into oil passages, at least one. That doesn't really need to be sealed as much in my mind, because it didn't leak and it wasn't sealed before. But anyways, the ones that go into the water jacket need to be put RTV on the threads or some sort of thread sealant. Anyways, yeah, so that's about it. I will just show the eccentric real quick here. So I'm just trying to think where I have everything. So here's the eccentric itself. And you'll notice when doing some research, there's different eccentrics that there's it's essentially like a one piece, and then there's a two piece one. But it basically seems the consensus is that you can use either one, with some exceptions. But you can almost always use a one piece. Even if a two piece was initially on there, you should be able to get away with the one piece. And if I'm not mistaken, this should be the same size eccentric. You cannot find a listing for this specifically new. So you can find some of them used maybe on eBay or something. But the 351 Cleveland, I believe has the same eccentric. At least it looks the same. I don't know the dimensions, but I believe they had that on Rock Auto. So anyways, and not all of them have the pin. Some of them have a tab built into the eccentric itself. But anyways, suffice it to say, this one is fine. It had not slipped. Everything was tickety-boo. So I'm gonna put some blue lock thread on the bolt just to be sure, just to be safe. So I cleaned off the bolt with some brake clean, and then also cleaned out the hole where it mounts. So anyways, I'm going to get that button back together, and then just, you know, with the nature of some of the gaskets tearing and stuff, it should be okay. It's a fairly new gasket on the pan. I'm just going to have to doctor it up with a little bit of RTV in some spots that it tore. And clean all the old gasket off, make sure everything's really good to go. So anyways, a quick update there for you guys. And I have a feeling like it's going to turn out to be something really simple that I should have thought about before. But that's often the way it goes, is you maybe think about, you overlook the more simple things. But in all fairness, it's like I've run through everything that I thought was simple, but there is one thing that I think may be the problem. But I don't have high hopes, because I've said that to myself probably, like, you know, 5 or 6 different times, you know, saying, oh, it's probably clogged fuel line, place the fuel lines. Nope, that didn't fix it. Probably a bad tank. Nope, that didn't fix it. The carb's clogged. Rebuild the carb. Nope, that didn't fix it. 3 new fuel pumps. Nothing fixes it. So at this point, I'm kind of at a loss. But anyways, that's a quick update on that. And yeah, so anyways, thanks for watching. And stay tuned, because at some point I will get it sorted out. So I will keep posting videos until I do get it all figured out and get the fuel issue sorted out. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.